I have here with me my amazing, beautiful client, Charu, with which I had a very, very powerful session. And she's here today to share with you her experience of this whole process. And I'm extremely grateful to her for accepting to be part of this process and to be here today. So, welcome, Charu, and thank you so much for being here and wanting to share your experience of what our work together brought to your life, so other people can get a better understanding of the benefits that they could have from this kind of methods being applied in their lives.
Oh, thank you, Ivana. It's my absolute pleasure to be part of this. It's been amazing, and I wish for everyone to have a transformative experience like this. So it's my pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was really, really a pleasure of us working together. And I would say we had an instant connection when we met, when we started to talk over Instagram, which is absolutely beautiful, and it's always a great sign for that the process will be very successful and that the results will be great. So I would like for you to tell me a little bit about why did you decide to reach out in the first place to me? What was it about my profile? Because I know you were following me for a while on Instagram before you reached out. So what was it about my profile and what I was conveying and saying that really resonated with you and then made you believe that working with me could impact your life and resolve the issues that you wanted to work on?
Okay, so I had some experience with RCT through a masterclass that I attended of Marisa Peer. So I knew it to be a very powerful method. Actually, I think this was even before I started my Insta profile to share my artwork and all of that. And from that moment, I think I inadvertently sort of began a journey of more self-acceptance, more self-exploration, of which some of the steps that were along the way was me engaging more with various methods of healing and various modalities to create more self-awareness for myself, and also to get more in touch with my emotional reality, I would say. Following you because I think RTT resonated with me, and just because I was more interested in learning more about RTT, but also because I was just open to connections, and then afterwards, because I had been following you for a bit, and I saw the kind of messages that you put out, and they resonated with me. But what really, really touched me was that one story that you shared from your childhood. And I was in a place myself where I had come to the realization that a lot of the issues, I would say, that that I was facing currently began rather in my childhood, whether it was intentional or not. In most cases, it wasn't. But that was the reality, And then it just resonated with me, that one story, because I very clearly remember being a child and being confused about adults' behaviors towards me. And it just it just, to me, I think it, at that moment it felt like, okay, she gets it, she perfectly gets it, so that instant connection. And then I'm very thankful that I connected, that I reached out to you, because I normally sometimes sort of don't do that. I hesitate a lot before reaching out and connecting with people. But this instance, I just followed my heart and just reached out to you, and I'm just so thankful that I did. I was already very interested in the mode of uh, therapy. That's why the initial connection was there, and then that one story, and I just I didn't. It helped me, I think, to just set aside my hesitance or whatever, and uh, just go at it directly and just reach out.
That's perfect, and I'm so glad that you shared that, because at, for me as a therapist, and for someone who is also posting content on Instagram and social media, of course it's always very vulnerable
Yeah.
position to share those kinds of stories, and those kinds of my personal, very emotional and deep experiences. So say for you to say that, and when I get this kind of feedback, is very encouraging for me too, to continue to do that. And it's just showing that this is how we connect the best as human beings. And this is, in the end, this is exactly why we're doing this interview too, because I want, for anyone who is listening to this, who is thinking about working with me and going through this experience, to hear your story, so uh, the listeners can connect better to the process, and what is actually the process about, and what are the possible results. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I wanted to ask you, so what was that moment, what was that key thing that made you understand that your childhood is the key factor in all of this? What was your personal experience, or that, that aha moment that you had, where you thought, oh yeah, I can really see that something that happened in my childhood is causing something in the present moment?
So it was, in one way, it was a growing realization as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I look back, there have been moments where connection and relationship with my mom and even my dad has been strained, and especially because I have an amazing relationship with my mom, but it's just that in some instances our relationship was strained. And when it all started there, I think, when I really started looking at uh, why this is happening, why is this happening, why are two people who are so close and who are so connected find some really pivotal moments in both their lives so difficult to navigate. And then I saw this pattern of I didn't realize this was generational awareness or generational trauma, generational healing, anything. I did not even know the word back then. But when I because I have this thing where I kind of really try to understand something. If something is if I can't understand something, I put more and more and more energy into it to see if I can kind of unravel it and see what the root cause of it is. That has been the way my mind works.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been analyzing the events, the patterns, the relationship a lot, and then I saw uh, certain patterns that were very clear. Starting point when I realized, okay, some of these things are really missing in my life because there was no one to show my mom how to do them, because it wasn't present even in my grandma's um, life, when it comes to the mother role and the typical aspects of the mother role. Uh,
So
now,
glad, and I'm so glad that you mentioned, that in the beginning you mentioned that you do have an amazing relationship with your mom. And I think
yeah,
that's so important because a lot of people are reluctant to go into this work, or they feel almost like they're betraying their parents if they go into this work. Whereas I think you came to realize through all of this work that you did, and especially through the session that we did together, is that it's not about what the parent did so much as it is about the meaning that you as a child assigned to what the parent did. And so of course they
exactly. Yes,
yes,
yes, that's so
so
important. Yes,
of course there can be um very very abusive situations, and that's a whole another story. But even in just normal everyday interaction between a child and a parent, these things happen because as children, as our subconscious mind is being developed and formed, we are constantly interpreting what's happening around us, and that is being stored as beliefs in our subconscious mind. And of course that as a 3-year old, 4-year, 5-year old child, we cannot give a complete or correct interpretations to everything that is happening. And that's where you
yeah,
mentioned confusion, being confused as a child. There's a lot of confusion in every childhood because,
yes.
right, because
Absolutely. Oh my God. Even when the parents are well meaning, it's a whole different reality when it comes to uh, a child, you know. The
yeah,
simplest thing to us would seem so different to a child.
definitely.
Yes.
Because you think as a child, as a 3-year old, and maybe we can talk a little bit about also the scenes that you went to in your session. So
Yes.
where you had this belief, my dad loves me, and then the first session, the first scene that you went back to in the session is where your dad is disciplining you because of something
Yes.
that you did. And there your confusion is coming up because you're looking at him and you're thinking, I thought my dad loves me, but now he's behaving this way, so he must
Exactly.
not love
It
me.
wasn't even, yeah, it wasn't even, and the strangest thing is like my parents, I mean, we all three, me and my two sisters, the three of us, we all like, we adore them and we know they did the absolute best they could, but still, like, you know, and we had a very, very secure, um, safe, normal, happy childhood in you know, general standards. But these things can still definitely happen. I think in any child's uh, reality of growing up, these things happen because they're bound to happen. We are human. We are not perfect, and uh, parents are not all encompassing. They cannot understand all aspects of any given situation. Definitely not back then. Even like
Yes.
there was much less awareness to conscious parenting back then. Definitely in
Absolutely.
cultures like ours.
It's actually education. Parenting is also something that we need to be educated about. And of course that previous generations and every generation that comes has less information and less access to education than the one after it, and of course that
Yeah.
they will make certain mistakes. And
Exactly, and going back to that scene, Ivana, when we
mhm,
that first scene that I encountered, it wasn't even that he was disciplining. It was so painful that he was completely. It appeared to me at I think 3 years old. It
mhm,
appeared to me that he was completely disconnected, completely like it felt like there was this iron wall and he was like he was impervious to however whatever I was feeling. But like the most amazing thing in that session for me was being that was just like indescribable. I still have no words to explain that. Being able to step into the other person's consciousness, their awareness, like being able to literally step into their shoes and access their truth, their inner truth, that was so powerful. That was just mind blowing, because I could see what was on the other side of uh, that ironclad wall, that barricade that he had put up.
Yes.
And I just saw that it was so much love, and not trying not to hurt me, trying not to do something um, that would cause me harm later on by others, perhaps, or like, according to his thinking as a child himself. That is what uh, brought about that moment, what he experienced, and his beliefs that he uh, gathered to himself as a child. So that was so powerful, just being able to step into another's truth. I did
Yes.
not realize it was that easy. The ease of uh, which with I like we were able to do that. That was just immense. That was just beyond imagination for me. I knew it was so transformative, but I did not realize it was that powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, even after all these years and hundreds of sessions that I did, that is the most amazing part for me too. I have to say, because it just shows the power of our subconscious mind, and
Yes.
how much more information we have access to than we're accessing in our conscious state. And also, as you
Yes.
say, how easy it is. So the whole process that we're doing, when we're talking about, and this is again one of the reasons why we're doing this interview, because I really want people to understand and know that everything that we're doing is very easy. It sounds
Yes.
abstract, it's
Yeah.
hard to explain, but when it comes down to the particular
But it's
steps.
very natural. It may sound abstract, it may sound very alien to some people who have uh, not really delved into uh, inner work or anything of that nature, but it seems a very complex and abstract thing, but it's very natural. It's
Yes.
very natural.
So
All
would
you
you
need,
say
and
that
some of it has been,
overall,
yeah.
overall, when you look at the whole session as a whole, would you say
Yes.
that most of the session is uncomfortable, or most of the session is something else? I won't put words in your mouth. I really want you to
Something else,
give an
definitely.
honest.
So definitely, yeah. So it something else, definitely, because I was ready to. I was even a little bit nervous at the beginning, like I told you. Although very much ready and willing to just to engage with whatever surfaces. Um, that was my mindset at the beginning of the session, before going into the session. It was very deeply reassuring and healing for me while in there, because it's just very effortless. Everything comes to you very effortlessly, and you're not in a since your conscious mind is not at the driving seat, you're not in a state of resistance against that. So yes, so because of that, it's immensely healing and uplifting to actually let those waves and waves of emotions and your truth, basically, that you had been suppressing all along, for it to just emerge, and for you to accept it, for you to accept the child that you were, for you to accept uh, that that incident happened, and this is how you felt, this is what the other person was going through, and all of that. The 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 broadness of the perspective really made it so fulfilling for me, because I always seek to understand, like I said earlier, I always seek to understand any painful incident. I always seek to understand why the other person was behaving the way they were behaving, because there is usually that side to the story too. So it was immensely fulfilling, reassuring, and comforting to me in a very wholehearted sort of way.
Mm.
The discomfort and the nervousness, all of those things were before, when the conscious mind was still at the forefront. But when I really went into the session, uh, I went in with the willingness. Even if there was any discomfort, yes, I will definitely embrace it. I went with that willingness. But inside of the hypnotherapy, inside of the session, inside of those uh, incidents, there was no there was no negativity as such, although the emotions, because the I suppose because the judging wasn't happening, the emotions were just coming out in and of themselves, and presenting themselves to me uh, in a way that I could embrace them. I
Mm.
was not judging them or resisting them in any way, so it was not painful at all. It was actually uh, very fulfilling. It felt really satisfying, and um, it felt reassuring, really.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you brought that key element, that there's no resistance. I was actually asked by someone at some point, how do you deal with ego and the resistance in the sessions? And
Yeah,
I have to say, this is the best thing about doing this work, and this is why I love this method so much,
yeah,
and why I'm so committed to it, is because ego very rarely comes up in these sessions. It maybe happens once in 50, 60 sessions. Huge majority of the time, ego is totally turned off. Your conscious, you're
yeah,
not conscious, but your thinking, critical, analytical mind is turned off, and
yeah,
then you see for yourself very clearly what all spiritual teachers are actually teaching us, that when we don't resist negative emotion, that they move naturally through us, and
yes,
they just
yes,
get released, and that's actually a pleasant experience and not unpleasant. And of course
yes,
when
not
it
at all unpleasant. Yes,
yes, and of course when it's connected to this level of understanding that you were describing, where you're able to see the situation from different point of views, in much more detail, and much more widely than you did before, all of that kind of combines in that transformational moment that you and everyone else that does the session experienced.
yeah.
So I would like to know next, so moving forward, we finished the session with the part that is based only on healing your mental, emotional, energetical body, and then we finished the session with the transformational recording that I gave
Yes,
you for you to listen to
yes.
every day. So I want you to share a little bit with all of us, how did it feel after the session, and what
Oh,
were
okay.
some immediate changes that you noticed after the session.
So right after the session, there was so much peace and contentment,
Mm.
and um, a few hours after the session, we did the session in the evening, in the afternoon, and that night I actually spoke with my husband about all the things that were uncovered in the session, and he proved to be a very attentive listener too, and we shared what um, it unearthed and uncovered, and what the insights I gained about him, and his life and his relationships too. And that night, towards the, before, right about before bedtime, I could already feel like this sensation that you feel when you're recovering from some long standing illness, like, when you have just recovered, not when you're recovering, but when you have on the very first few days that you have absolutely recovered from something. It was that physical sensation uh, was there in my body, and I think I shared this with Ivana even through a message.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it was there, I think that night and then the day after, and like this sense of, okay, something being completely healed. So your body is a little bit tired, but now at a very restful state
Mm-hmm.
because it overcame something. Uh, so it was. I felt this change at cellular level. That's how I think I described it. I did feel it at cellular level. It felt like every cell of my body was like in this healed, recuperating mode for from that night onwards for about 2 days, 3 days, I think. Yes, that's how I felt.
Amazing. And what were some changes that you noticed moving forward? So since the session till now?
Okay, so we focused on the relationship aspect of my life, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to other opportunities too, there seems to be more of an influx of opportunities. Uh, and after that first 2 or 3 days of some sort of stillness, I could feel that there was like a very deep shift that is uh, set in motion. So some of it was this awareness that um, change is happening, change is underfoot. It's not essentially a very comfortable feeling, uh, but there was more readiness in me to accept it as whatever it was. Even when it comes to my actions, I was much less procrastinating. I was much less self-doubting, and I was more able to speak my truth and just follow my intuition into any situation that had to be engaged with, because I used to be the sort of person who would stay away from engaging directly with people. Which yes, sometimes, like, if it was a little bit, if it's not someone I knew, if it meant me putting myself out there in any way, I would sort of hesitate and step back. um, this completely changed. So I would take action uh, despite the slight discomfort I was feeling.
Mm.
Uh, so if the proportions of things were, I think, recalibrated in that way, uh, the self doubt and the, the 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 discomfort you feel in taking a first step towards something uh, was earlier, I would say, disproportionate to what is real. But now it's more in proportion, and I'm more confident in and more patient in um, taking those first steps, but also less. I would say less narrow-minded, less attached to one specific outcome with respect to anything. I am able to be just more relaxed and uh, let the events unfold, and let the events bring their whatever they're supposed to bring to me, just for that to happen,
Mm.
without me trying to sort of take the steering wheel and navigate it any which way to see if I can, drive it to from point A to what I think is point B. But really, sometimes it's much easier and much more effective if we don't do that, and if we take a broader perspective and a much more relaxed stance in approaching things, because then things fall effortlessly into place. So I feel like I'm wasting less energy in trying to do things from a very linear perspective, and allowing things to fall into place into my life in the highest uh, order that they should be in, I would say. It takes a lot of, yeah, I feel like it takes a lot of uh, allowing and a lot of surrender to do that. I don't know whether it's only this session or whether it was this shift that was happening, but this session has definitely enhanced uh, that relaxed state that I would ideally like to be in life generally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely amazing, and I'm glad you presented it that way, and that for people to know, self-doubt or any kind of negative emotions or negative thoughts is part of human condition. We cannot
Yes.
ever or, I mean, most of us will not be able to remove it 100%, if we're not as so lucky that we get enlightened, which
Yeah, and
which
that's not the point,
requires
right? Yeah.
which requires a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
work, which also
yeah,
can happen, but it's not the ultimate goal. But as you
yeah,
said, when
yeah.
those negative thoughts are not the ones that are directing and ruling our life,
Exactly.
but
Yes.
they're just like an echo, something that's happening in the
Yeah,
background that you become
yeah.
aware of, and you say, okay, I hear you, but that's not what I choose to believe. I think
Exactly.
a lot of us would like to have that ability and that control over our life, but we're just
Yes.
not able because of the power that subconscious patterns have over us. And
Yeah.
this is the first shift, let's say, that the session does for you, where you get your authentic self gets in control of your life instead of that subconscious programming. And then as that continues, that subconscious programming dies off more and more, becomes more and more weak, until it disappears. This is how it happens for most people.
Yeah,
So,
it's like uh, it's there, but like you said, it's not driving your actions.
yes, yes, amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
And tell me, whether, since we worked on relationships and specifically on your relationship with your husband and your marriage, how are things different from the session in that area?
So I feel the changes are happening very subtly, but very concretely. Uh, Definitely, I mean, every like after for about the first week, I clearly noticed this. This is really funny. So I had been here listening to the recording at night, and uh, the instances where my daughter would just come and hug me and kiss me and do all sorts of
Mm,
sweet, adorable things have like really increased, really increased. So
yeah.
and I'm just laughing to myself and thinking she must be feeling the vibrational difference now.
Mhm.
And when it comes to me and my husband, I think I'm able to see the truth for what it is more now than let uh, some sort of fearful thought or doubt or negative emotion sort of guide the situation than before. So much more sincerity. It's not that our relationship was not one where it was like really strained to the point where I felt like this is enough. It was not like that at all. What I seek in this is to realize for myself um, how I could be more present and more to have a broader, more wholesome perspective of things too, and to see how I could pour into myself, and reassure myself so that I'm not expecting that from him to an unreasonable degree, because obviously, like, our partners support we do need, and in a marriage, like in any union, you need the two people to support each other. So I'm not saying that I'm like this independent woman who's like, got it all figured out now, and I don't get upset, I don't get annoyed. No, not at all. But the exchanges and the engagement has become much more sincere, and I clearly see, uh, without like, it seems as if there is no reason for those gestures, as if it's happening out of the blue. But I think it's the energetic shift that has happened. But definitely, he is more reassuring and more engaging in that um, uh, comforting way, the nurturing way that is inherently there. But I think there were instances in our relating to each other where I was going against certain things, and really working against my best interests, or my truth, And now that I am more um, aware of what is going on and what has been going on, and I'm more loving to myself, I think it reflects. I think this is why I think it's reflecting uh, to other people, like I am mirroring their better aspects, perhaps, because I have had that experience with almost all of my family, close family members.
Wow.
Definitely my husband too, and my mom-in-law, and my mother, my siblings, definitely me and my husband. So the care and affection that was definitely there, but in some ways were getting interrupted. It's getting less interrupted now. So that is slowly evolving into uh, a better, more healthier, more. We were anyway honest with each other from the very beginning. I believe in like 100% honesty. That is the I feel like that is the best way that we can love a person, is by being completely honest with the other person. But I think now I can be more authentic, and my vision is less clouded. So with the insights and the healing that I gathered to myself from the sessions, definitely at a more reassuring place myself. So um, all the other gestures and actions are much clearer to me now. What others do, especially what my husband does, and I'm much more. This is very important to me. I'm in a much more uh, grateful state of mind. I'm more full of gratitude. I always believe that, but when just in when life just unfolds, sometimes you kind of lose touch with that, even though you believe that 100%. um, so I feel like I'm back in touch with that sense of gratitude, and that care and affection is definitely uh, more visible, more present, because perhaps I'm less clouded in my vision. I feel,
Mm.
yeah, and also perhaps because of the sharing that we did right after the session, where I just completely shared. Uh, I don't know whether this is advisable in all instances, but in my instance, in my case, it felt completely right for me to do so. That's why I did it. It felt right for me to share with him that I wasn't interfering or damaging him in any way, or that I was not compromising myself in any way. I was very sure that was what I that was what is naturally like what I'm supposed to do. So I did it. Um, and so he knows what went on in the session, everything I uncovered about him. And I think that has brought us to a much more caring dynamic again. So that has helped us in that way, definitely.
This is so beautiful, and I do hope that, especially for all women that will be listening to this, because the issue that you came to me with is very, very common for us women, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, you had, as you said, you had a very good relationship already. It's not
Yeah.
that
It's not that it was failing miserably or anything, but
but
and
you
it was
just,
not, and more importantly, it was not that it was abusive in any way. It's just that uh, there was this disconnect I felt at certain times, where I felt that definitely could get better, and we should start from one end, either his end or my end. And because I had the absolute fortune of meeting you and coming across you, I think I was able to take that step for myself as much as for him.
yes, yes, amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
think, this can be very empowering for other women out there listening, because they can understand that need for higher level of connection that almost all have at certain point, at least in relationships. And for a lot of people that come to me, and a lot of women that come to me, this is something that is uh, going on for their entire marriage or their entire relationship. Your experience and the experience of other clients of mine and my personal experience shows that this is something that is completely in your hands and in your power.
yes,
It can be very disempowering for women, because we feel that we need to make the other person, make our partner to give us what we want, or that,
exactly.
yes,
And that's a very frustrating place to be for us and for them, because they do not get the message clearly anyway when we frame it that way, or when we are of that kind of mindset. It's very it's difficult for them to reach out, because we don't intend to, but we unintentionally make it very difficult for them. So
yes,
I would like to share another very important aspect, I think, Ivana, in my relationship with my husband, and how that has been impacted by my relationship with my father. Because perhaps at least some people out there would be experiencing the very same thing. So my father was an amazing man. He was all sorts of wonderful, but he was not uh, very physically affectionate. Um, he wouldn't show his care in that way, although he was a parent you could rely on, who was always there, who always, protected you. And he never ever to this very, I mean, I cannot um, uh, re- recall any one instance where he discouraged me for anything that I wanted to go after. And he had such high regard for me and such admiration and love for me, but he did not show it in in ways of affection. And I, by nature, am a child who loves physical affection and cuddling and all of that. So not having that from my dad, I think to a certain degree, not 100%, but to a certain degree, I feel like in the past I felt like I had replicated that relationship when it comes to my husband, because he's amazing too, and he's very nurturing, he's very caring, but sometimes he tends to um, hold himself off when he's dealing with a lot of things. He wouldn't want the other person to be affected. So uh, what what they then do, what men then do is they just build this fortress and try to contain all of the pressure inside, uh,
Mhm.
which feels a little, not a little, very isolating for the partner who is outside of that, right? So I feel like that's something that I uh, I used to feel like that's something that I replicated in terms of the nature of relating. But now I clearly see that there is a way through it that's very important, because at a certain point I felt like, okay, I may have to resign myself to the fact that this is how we relate to each other, but that is not so. It's definitely uh, changing, and it can be changed if
Mhm.
only we have the deep understanding that that something like an RTT session would um, bring us. We need to have that deeper awareness of why things are the way they are because of what came to be before that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I feel like that.
That's
Yeah,
so amazing and powerful, so powerful. And I just want to emphasize one thing from what you just shared, and that is that sometimes we all know that, or anyone who's into personal development in any way probably knows that we attract certain people that replicate the patterns from our
yes,
childhood. But
yes,
it's not, that's not the only option. What also can happen, and happens very often with people that are fairly aware and that already did a lot of work on themselves, and that are higher in vibration, is actually that we attract people who we don't necessarily attract people who replicate that subconscious pattern, but we are projecting that subconscious pattern in a relationship
exactly.
and
Yeah,
creating it where it doesn't have to be that way and doesn't have to
exactly,
exist. Yeah.
exactly. So if we think in terms of like uh, definites, we would think, okay, yeah, so that was my reality, so this is going to be my reality now. But no, that is not the case at all. Relationships are very malleable, just like human beings, you know. We have the capacity to change and evolve. Of course, individuals may evolve at different rates, but our relating to each other, if it is a loving relationship, that can definitely include and encompass the aspects that we want to feel satisfied about, you
Wow.
know. And
Yeah.
it all starts with, yeah, and it all starts with us actually creating more awareness within ourselves, about ourselves, more than anything else. Because I remember very clearly how I would behave before I before I had any deep awareness of myself, and now after I have more awareness, even from before the session, like when I started getting into uh, uh, gaining more inner awareness, my behavior changed towards other people.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so it's not some set pattern concrete thing that's going to, you know, replicate. You either take it or leave it. It's not a situation like that at all, because like Ivana said, we are, like you said, Ivana, we are like what we project. When that definitely changes, our
Yeah.
reality just, yeah, what comes back to us changes as well. So that was definitely my, absolutely my experience.
Amazing. And I want you, I think this is such a beautiful story, and I love how our interview unfolded. It was very authentic and
Okay.
natural, and I just allowed questions to come up from what you were sharing, and you were sharing very beautifully. So, in order to conclude, for everyone that is listening, I just want you to share with our listeners any concluding message that you have for them, or anything that you would like to share with them about this process, or maybe if someone is listening that is thinking about going down this road and experiencing it for itself, what is it that you would say to these people based on your own experience?
Yeah, I think definitely some degree of inner work and self awareness is absolutely necessary if we are to grow and grow into our fullest potential, what we are meant to do or what we want to do out in the world, because it's not only about existing, it's about sharing what we came down to this earth to share, to share our gifts, to serve people, to uplift our kind, our race, our humankind, and our world. um, so when we think about our life and our existence in that way, inner work is something that you uh, cannot deny. You absolutely have to engage with your truth, with your how you create your reality, because we do. Um, so I would definitely encourage anyone who's thinking about going into inner work, inner child work, or healing, to try RTT, simply because to me it feels like one of the most effective uh, methods out there, if not the most rapid. That's why it says rapid transformational therapy, because it's it involves inner child work and hypnotherapy, and that is absolutely powerful. You have to experience it to know how powerful it is, because inner child work in and of itself is powerful. It's very transformative. Hypnotherapy in and of itself is very powerful. It's very revealing, and you can really go deep and gain insight and awareness. And when you combine those two together, the changes that are set in motion are permanent, they're concrete, and it's the most natural thing in the world for us to do too, because we are born as very creative beings, and it is in our very nature to evolve and to embrace all that we are, and to share from that space of overflow. So in order to uh, get to that space of overflow, it's just a matter of clearing all the clutter that is just obstructing you, that is holding you back. It's not um, innate, it's not inherent, it is just things that need to be let go of. And RTT is one of the absolute most beautiful, powerful ways you can do that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Charu. That was so beautifully said. I wouldn't say it better myself.
Thank you so
So,
much.
thank you so much for sharing this whole story with us.
It was
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
for
It was my absolute pleasure.
it was absolutely my pleasure to work with you, to be part of this process for you. The way that you approached it, the commitment that you have, and uh, of course, the best thing that the results that are coming out of the process for you. So thank you for being my client, and thank you for participating in this podcast, sharing your story, and helping, I'm sure, a lot of people that will listen to this, and that will set off a lot of things for them in motion towards more happy, more authentic life. So thank you so much one more time.
It was an absolute pleasure, Ivana. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful that we crossed paths, and you made this happen for me. I'm very thankful. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.